Going back to the original Pittsburgh game, though, Dave, do you want to talk a little bit about the pre-festivities before this game?
Okay, yeah. So before the game, so that's the annual Hockey Hall of Fame night. So every year, they induct like the players get inducted into the Hall of Fame. I believe tomorrow night is the actual ceremony. They had their plaques done that day before the game. They had the guys on, so that would have been Daniel Alfredson, Roberto Luongo. I know both of the Sedins I believe, are inducted, but I think Henrik wasn't able to attend, or maybe it was Daniel. I forget. And then a couple other names that I'm blanking on. I know Rika Salonen, who's like one of the all-time great Finnish women hockey players. If you look at her stats, she's got a real resume. She played till she was like 45. Unbelievable.
And Tom Brady
But
over there, eh? Wow.
yeah, I think she might be better. No offense,
Damn.
Tom.
Yeah.
Tom Brady might have to play till like he's 60 after FTX. If you guys don't,
Ooh,
if you guys,
that's tough.
yeah.
That's a real
Brian with
tough,
your business
tough look
talk.
for
You
him.
can leave that for later. What was I going to say now? There was someone, Herb Carnegie. Herb Carnegie was the either like the
Herb Carnegie is
constructor
another one.
or the yeah. And I
I
always
think
remember
from the
Herb Carnegie
Builders.
because I used to play. Yeah, builder. That's the term. Yeah, I always remember Herb Carnegie because I used to play hockey games at Herb Carnegie Arena in Toronto. So I always like that arena. So shout out to Herb Carnegie.
So the big takeaway actually from the beginning of that Leaf game was legendary Swedish Leafs defenseman Börje Salming was brought out onto the ice. So for those of you that don't know, Börje Salming was diagnosed with ALS, I believe last year. It took him a little bit of time to, announce it in public. He wanted to keep it private for a little bit, and unfortunately, it's been taking a toll on him. And back, I think last month, he posted a video with him and his wife, to the point where he's speaking through an iPad. His motor skills are starting to go. He's not unable to speak. Has to be fed through feeding tubes. It's not a pretty sight by any stretch of the imagination. But the main takeaway was he's on the ice with on like the mat on the ice with legendary Leaf captains Daryl Sittler and Matt Sundin. Also noted Swede Matt Sundin as well. And the crowd gives him an ovation that I haven't seen in a long time, and a well-deserved ovation. It was at least a few minutes long, and it really got to everybody to see. Daryl Sittler started to break down on the ice, which was, absolutely like just like pulling at the heartstrings. It looked like Matt was actually about to like start to cry, and he's known as somebody who's real like stoic, like not one to show emotion, and it was starting to get to him as well. And of course, Salming is visibly emotional as well, which really started to get to me a lot. So for Salming, like I don't know if you guys know this, but like in my family, Borje Salming is like one of our all-time favorite hockey players. Him and Sittler, like I grew up watching highlights of those two guys just absolutely crushing stuff in the 70s. I guess I'll get into a little bit of the Salming talk before we get into the rest of the games and stuff. One thing to note, so they had Salming there because the night after, so yesterday night against Vancouver, they had a formal ceremony for him, which was, I believe, was pre-planned. They just had him
Yeah.
in the game before, and then they were going to do the actual ceremony the night after, which is also, again, heartwarming, touching. Please go watch the video that the Leafs posted about Salming. So just a couple of things that I wanted to note on Borje Salming. I know Brian isn't, and this isn't a slight at you, Brian, but I feel that Börje Salming kind of goes under the radar when talking about legendary European hockey players in general. So he broke barriers for all European hockey players around. Like he was one of the very first European hockey players at a time when the Swedes in the National Hockey League were seen as chicken Swedes, and that type of like stereotype was perpetuated through the media around North
Yeah.
American hockey circles. So we don't need to say names on, but there's one name in particular that comes to mind that always perpetuated that stereotype. We'll avoid that subject for another time, maybe.
I know what you're talking about.
So he's So he is the first European player to play in 1,000 NHL games. He was also one of the very first Europeans inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame. He is the current Leafs defense leader for points as a defenseman and goals as well. He is also the franchise leader in assists. He also won the Viking Award 3 times. Do any of you know what the Viking Award is?
Best beard in the league.
Best Swedish player in international competition? I don't know.
That doesn't make sense. It's got to be something Swedish.
It is the voted on best Swedish hockey player, voted on like in the NHL, and at the time when the WHA was around still as well.
Okay.
And I didn't know this either. They still give out this award. I guess it's not highly publicized, but like recently, like Erik Karlsson won it.
Nylander, I think Nylander might have won this, man.
He might have. I don't know actually. I don't think so. Mats Sundin won it 3 times.
Okay.
Börje Salming won it 3 times. He was one of the very first winners. It's just something that's not publicized. So,
yeah.
Listen, the point that I'm getting to this about this little thing is, unfortunately, it looks like Salming's health is starting to deteriorate in front of our eyes in real time. But it's also something to look back at. He was legitimately one of the best defensemen in the NHL. While he might not have all the accolades to kind of like back up that statement, like he never won a Norris Trophy. It's also tough when you're going up against Bobby Orr in the 70s.
So I was going to say
that could be a bit forgiven, right? But on many teams, he was somebody, and you could see all of his teammates say the same thing. If you're going to go into battle, that's a guy that you want on your team. He's like, take no nonsense. He really started to break down those barriers of the chicken Swede philosophy. He was instrumental in like breaking down those barriers, and it's just something to know. And we wish him all the best here. I don't know if I mentioned the disease. I believe I said it before, but ALS, the real like degenerative spinal disease. And a lot of talk's been going on recently for ALS, and we wish him all the best. Yeah.
Is he on what's it called? Like you guys
Legends
have like
Row?
That's what it's called. Is he on there?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, he's one of the first.
Yep.
One of the first there.
I actually didn't know.
Yeah. David, I think you did a fantastic job paying tribute to Borje there. I can't add too much because you hit all the stuff there, and just echoing things you said. Legend, absolute legend. So happy that he got that ovation. As sad as it was to see how emotional everyone was getting, it was also great to have that moment. It was good to see the emotions flowing. It was just we forget like that. Just the Leafs are this historical franchise, despite all the jokes that get thrown at us, we make at ourselves, all this good stuff. There is a storied history to these guys, and he's among the most storied. So yeah, that's it's a little bit on Börje Salming there. I myself feel guilty of having to do a deep dive into Borje, watch some highlights, and just educate myself on a Leaf legend right there. I obviously know him in name, we know of his accolades, but yeah, I'm gonna look up some stuff at some point just to actually watch the guy play, get an appreciation for him.
There's
so yeah.
Oh
yeah,
sorry.
Brian, what you got?
This is probably the only thing I gotta have to say about this, but shout out to the Leafs organization and the Vancouver Canucks organization. I saw the ceremony in the sense that Ekman Larsson, Nylander, ceremonial face-off, and then I believe you guys started 5 Swedes?
All 6 Swedes.
6. Oh,
all 6 goalies as well.
Yeah. Good for you guys.
Yeah.
That was a class move.
It
sounded like it was Keefe that took the initiative on that one from his press conference after the game. So shout out to Kiev, shout out to the Leafs org. Very, very
Well
class
done.
act. And we
Yeah.
could tell from the players' comments as well. I think Sandine and Nylander specifically, we heard from them, and it meant a lot to them, not only last night, but also just the ceremony on the Friday night during the Hall of Fame game. They were all touched by that. And yeah, I mean, shout out to Borje.